Fiona Jacobs was in the middle of signing a deal worth $300 million when her phone rang and interrupted everything. She did not pick it. Her pen moved across the contract with the kind of calm that made grown men nervous. The lawyers on the other side of the table exchanged glances. The room was silent except for the soft scratch of ink on paper and the persistent buzzing of her phone against the glass table. She signed the last page, capped her pen, and slid the contract back without looking up. "Gentlemen," she said simply. That was it. That was the meeting. Her assistant, Bree, was already holding her coat by the time she stepped out of the boardroom. Fiona slipped into it without breaking stride, and it was only then, in the quiet of the corridor, that she picked up her phone and saw the missed call. "Dad." She frowned. Her father never called during business hours. He knew better. She called back immediately. It rang twice. "Fiona." His voice was warm but carried something underneath it. Something careful. "Dad. What happened?" "Nothing bad," he said quickly. I need you to speak with someone." She stopped walking. Bree nearly ran into her from behind. "Dad, I just closed the Meridian deal. I have a debrief in 20 minutes and a board call at 4. "Fiona." One word. The way he said her name made her close her eyes briefly. "Who is it?" she asked. "A young man I met at lunch today." He paused. "A very young man. Dad, if this is another one of your matchmaking." "He is 7 years old, Fiona." She blinked. "Excuse me. Welcome to Black Silk Stories, the home of Afro-Korean stories that hit different. Subscribe, drop a comment, and do not go anywhere. This is only the beginning." 3 hours earlier, Mr. Jacobs had arrived at Alara, one of the finest restaurants in the city, looking exactly like what he was, a man of quiet wealth and good taste. His charcoal suit was pressed without a single crease. His silver hair was neat. The maitre d' greeted him by name and walked him to his usual corner table, a table set for 4 by the window, with afternoon light falling across the white linen like something out of a painting. He ordered sparkling water, opened the menu out of habit even though he already knew what he wanted, and settled into the particular peace that a good restaurant offers a man dining alone. He was reaching for his water when he heard the door. Not the sound of it opening. He heard the shift in the room, the subtle straightening of waitstaff, the quiet awareness that moved through Alara like a current. He looked up. A little boy walked in. He could not have been older than 7. He was Korean, small-framed, and dressed in a way that made Mr. Jacobs blink twice. The boy wore a crisp white button-down shirt beneath a fitted cream blazer. His trousers were slim and perfectly hemmed. His shoes, brown leather loafers, were polished to a shine. His hair was neatly parted and his face was the kind of face that made strangers want to smile without knowing why. Sharp eyes. Calm expression. A seriousness about his mouth that sat oddly and yet perfectly on such a young face. Behind him, 2 large men in dark suits moved to flank the entrance. The boy turned and said something short and quiet in Korean. Both men stopped. Stayed outside. The boy walked into the restaurant alone. The maitre d' approached him with the same deference offered to any important guest. The boy spoke politely, glanced around the room once with those sharp eyes, and then his gaze landed on Mr. Jacobs. He looked at the empty chairs at the table of 4. Then he walked over. "Good afternoon, sir," the boy said. His English was clean, accented softly with Korean. He stood straight, hands relaxed at his sides. "My name is Jum. I see you are sitting alone at a table for 4. May I join you?" Mr. Jacobs stared at him for a full 2 seconds. Then he smiled and gestured to the seat across from him. "Please." Jum sat down. Not with the restless energy of a child, but with the settled composure of someone twice his age. He accepted the menu from the waiter, scanned it briefly, and ordered a bowl of truffle mushroom soup and sparkling water with lemon. Mr. Jacobs watched all of this with quiet amusement. "You come here often?" Mr. Jacobs asked. "Sometimes," Jum said. "When my father is busy and I want to think." "You come to a restaurant to think?" "The noise helps," Jum said simply. "Not too much noise. Just enough." Mr. Jacobs leaned back in his chair. "How old are you, Jum?" 7. He said it without any self-consciousness, as though his age was simply a fact and not something the world should find remarkable. "And your father lets you come to places like this alone?" "My father trusts me," Jum said. "And Mr. Andy is outside." "Ah." Mr. Jacobs nodded slowly. "The men at the door." "Yes." Their food arrived. Jum thanked the waiter with a small nod. They ate in comfortable silence for a moment, which struck Mr. Jacobs as extraordinary, that a 7-year-old could sit in silence without fidgeting, without reaching for a phone, without needing to fill every second with noise. "What is your name, sir?" Jum asked. "Jacobs. Mr. Jacobs." Jum looked at him thoughtfully. "You have a kind face, Mr. Jacobs. But you look a little lonely." Mr. Jacobs laughed. A genuine laugh, not the polished kind he used in boardrooms. "I am not lonely. I am peaceful." "Sometimes they look the same," Jum said. Mr. Jacobs stared at him. "You are very unusual for a 7-year-old." "I know," Jum said, and returned to his soup. Another pause. Then Jum set his spoon down with a small, deliberate click and looked across the table with an expression that was almost businesslike. "Mr. Jacobs," he said, "do you have children?" "I have a daughter." "Is she grown?" "She is 25. Jum's eyes moved just slightly, a calculation behind them. "Is she beautiful?" Mr. Jacobs raised an eyebrow. "She is." "Is she smart?" "She is a CEO." Jum was quiet for exactly 3 seconds. Then he said, "My father has a gala tomorrow evening. It is an important night and he will be attending alone. I would like your daughter to accompany him." Mr. Jacobs put his glass down slowly. "I beg your pardon?" "A gala," Jum repeated calmly. "Tomorrow evening. 7 o'clock. It is a black tie event. My father's name is Key. He is a good man and he will treat your daughter with complete respect." Mr. Jacobs searched the boy's face for any sign that this was a joke. There was none. "Son," Mr. Jacobs said carefully, "I appreciate the invitation. But my daughter is a very busy woman. She runs a company. I cannot simply." "Mr. Jacobs." Jum's voice was gentle, but it had a quality in it that made the older man pause. Not rudeness. Not threat. Just certainty. "This is not a negotiation. I am asking kindly. But I am asking once." The table was quiet. Mr. Jacobs looked at this 7-year-old boy in his cream blazer and his polished shoes and his absolutely unshakable composure, and felt, for the first time in many years, slightly outmaneuvered. "I need you to call her," Jum said. "Now please. I would like to speak with her." "You want to?" Mr. Jacobs stopped. Collected himself. "You want to speak with my daughter? On the phone? Right now?" "Yes please," Jum said, and folded his small hands on the table. Mr. Jacobs exhaled, picked up his phone, dialed, which brought Fiona to the moment she was standing in the corridor outside the Meridian boardroom, coat half on, phone pressed to her ear, being told by her 60-year-old father that a 7-year-old wanted to speak with her. "Dad, just talk to him, Fiona. Please." She heard the shuffle of a phone being passed. Then a short silence. Then a voice, small, clear, and startlingly composed, came through the line. "Good afternoon, Ms. Jacobs. My name is Jum. I hope I am not disturbing you." Fiona's mouth opened, closed. She pressed her back against the corridor wall. "You are not disturbing me," she said, because she did not know what else to say. "Good. I will be brief because I can tell you are a busy person." A small pause. "My father has a gala tomorrow evening. I would like you to accompany him. 7 o'clock. Black tie. A car will be sent for you." Fiona blinked at the far wall. "I don't. I'm sorry, how old are you?" 7. 7, she repeated. "Yes. My father does not know I am making this call. But that is not important. What is important is that you come tomorrow." Another pause. Then quieter, and this was the part that did something unexpected to Fiona's chest. "My father is a good man, Ms. Jacobs. He works very hard and he is always alone at these things. I do not like seeing him alone." Fiona was silent. "I found your father's face kind," Jum continued. "And he says you are smart and beautiful. My father deserves someone smart and beautiful." Something tightened in Fiona's throat. She pressed her fingers to her temple. "Jum," she said slowly, "what if I already have plans tomorrow?" "Then I would ask you to change them," he said simply, respectfully. Against everything, against her schedule, her boardroom brain, her absolute commitment to never letting anything catch her off guard. Fiona Jacobs almost smiled. "This is very bold of you," she said. "I know," said Jum. "And your father? What kind of man is he?" A beat. Just one. Then Jum said something that undid her completely. He laughs with his whole face when something is really funny. Not the polite kind of laugh. The real kind. But nobody makes him laugh like that anymore. A pause. I want someone to make him laugh like that again. The corridor was very quiet. Fiona stared at nothing. She thought about her schedule. Her debrief. Her board call at 4. The $300 million contract still warm from her pen. Then she thought about a 7-year-old boy in, she imagined, some very nice restaurant, calling a stranger on his father's behalf because he was tired of watching his father be alone. What time did you say? She asked. 7 o'clock, Jum said. The car will come at 6:30. I haven't said yes. I know, said Jum. But you will. She did not say yes that afternoon. She went back into her office, sat through her debrief, took her board call, reviewed 2 contracts, and ate a dinner she barely tasted at her desk. She told herself she was not thinking about it. She opened the gala invitation that arrived in her email, from an assistant she had never heard of, on behalf of someone identified only as Key, and read it once, then closed it. She opened it again at 11 at night. The gala was for the restoration of a children's hospital. She had not expected that. She sat with that information longer than she intended. She called Bree at 11:30. I need a gown for tomorrow evening, she said. Black tie. Bree, to her credit, did not ask a single question. Color preference? Fiona thought for a moment. Emerald green. The car arrived at 6:28. 2 minutes early. Fiona noticed that. The driver was quiet and professional. The car was black and moved through evening traffic with the kind of ease that came from knowing exactly which routes to take. Fiona sat in the back in her emerald green gown, long, sleek, with a neckline that was elegant without asking for attention, and told herself she was simply attending a charity event. She had attended hundreds of charity events. This was nothing different. The venue was a restored heritage building in the heart of the city. Warm gold light poured from its tall windows. Beautifully dressed people moved through the entrance. A string quartet played somewhere inside. Fiona stepped out of the car. And then she heard a small voice from the top of the entrance steps. You came. She looked up. Jum stood at the top of the steps in a perfectly fitted all-black suit, the jacket cut small and sharp for his tiny frame, with a white pocket square and black dress shoes that caught the light. His hair was neat. His face was bright with something he was working very hard not to show too obviously. He was, Fiona thought, genuinely the most put-together 7-year-old she had ever seen in her life. She climbed the steps slowly and stopped in front of him. You said the car would come at 6:30, she said. It came at 6:28. I told them 6:25, Jum said. They were late. Fiona looked at him for a long moment. Then she did something she had not done sincerely in longer than she could remember. She laughed. Not the professional kind. Not the boardroom kind. The real kind, surprised out of her, warm and unguarded. Her whole face changing with it. Jum watched her laugh and something settled in his expression. Something satisfied and quietly relieved. You are more beautiful in person, he said matter-of-factly. Thank you, Jum. My father does not know you are coming, he said. I want you to meet him naturally. So please do not mention me. Fiona raised an eyebrow. You arranged this entire evening and you want no credit? I want results, Jum said simply. And then he turned and walked back inside, leaving Fiona Jacobs standing at the top of the steps, shaking her head slowly, smiling in a way she could not fully explain. She followed him in. The inside of the venue was the kind of beautiful that did not try too hard. Tall ceilings with warm amber lighting. Round tables dressed in ivory and gold. The quiet confidence of old money mixed with new influence. Waitstaff moved between guests with practiced invisibility, and the string quartet in the far corner played something that sat just beneath the level of conversation, felt more than heard. Fiona accepted a glass of champagne from a passing tray, and moved through the room with the ease of someone who had attended 1,000 rooms exactly like this one. She smiled at faces she recognized, exchanged brief pleasantries, kept moving. She was not looking for anyone. She told herself that clearly. She was simply at a charity event. Then she saw him. He was standing near the far window with 2 other men talking. He was tall for a Korean man, broad-shouldered, with a stillness about him that made the people around him seem like they were moving too fast. He wore a black suit that was clearly made for him specifically, not bought. His jaw was clean. His hair was dark and pushed back from his face. He was not smiling, not exactly, but there was something at the corner of his mouth that suggested he could, and that when he did it would be worth seeing. Fiona looked away. She took a slow sip of her champagne. She looked back. He had not moved, but something had changed. He was no longer looking at the men he was speaking with. He was looking at her. Not the way men usually looked at her. That quick, consuming look that started at her face and moved downward like they were taking inventory. This was different. He looked at her the way someone looks at a word they recognize but cannot immediately place. Like she was something familiar that he had not been expecting to find here. Fiona held his gaze for exactly 2 seconds. Then she turned and walked toward the bar. Her heart was doing something she chose not to name. He had not wanted to come tonight. He had stood in his dressing room for 20 minutes that evening in his shirt and trousers, looking at the black jacket laid across the chair, and felt the particular exhaustion of a man who had attended too many rooms full of people who wanted something from him. It was Jum who had straightened his collar before he left. "You look good, Dad," Jum had said, standing on his toes to reach. "You are not coming?" He had asked. "I will come later," Jum said. "With Mr. Andy." He had looked at his son for a moment. This small, serious, impossibly perceptive boy who had his mother's eyes and a soul that belonged entirely to himself, and felt the familiar ache of loving someone so much it sat in your chest like a stone. "Don't be late," he had said. "I am never late," Jum replied. Now Key stood in the middle of a room full of important people and their important conversations, and he was thinking about his son, and he was thinking about going home early, and then he looked across the room and everything in his mind went quiet. She was standing near the far window. Emerald green dress. Long and composed. Her hair was down and she held her champagne glass with the kind of ease that was not practiced. It was simply who she was. She was talking to no one at that moment, just existing in the room with a self-containment that he found startling. She was the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. That was not a dramatic thought. It arrived in him like a simple fact, the way hunger arrives, not announced, just suddenly present and undeniable. Then she looked at him. He had been caught looking and he did not look away. Neither did she, for 2 seconds, maybe 3, and then she turned and walked toward the bar and Key breathed out slowly through his nose. One of the men beside him was still talking. He heard none of it. Fiona was on her second glass of champagne, which was one more than she usually allowed herself at events like this, when a voice came from just over her left shoulder. "I don't believe we've been introduced." She turned. He was closer than she expected. Not uncomfortably close. There was nothing aggressive about how he occupied space, but close enough that she could see his eyes clearly now. Dark, calm, with something behind them that was not quite guarded but was not open either. A man who had learned to keep himself at a particular distance from the world. "We haven't," she said. "Key," he said. "Fiona." He did not offer his hand immediately. He just looked at her for a moment, like he was deciding something. "You're not from the hospital board," he said. "No. I know most of the people in this room," he said. "I don't know you. Is that unusual for you?" she asked. "Yes," he said simply. "Very." There was a pause. Not an awkward one. The kind of pause that two people allow when they are deciding how honest to be. "I was invited," Fiona said. "By who?" She thought of Jum's small serious face at the top of the entrance steps. "Do not mention me." "A mutual connection," she said. He studied her. "What do you do, Fiona?" "I run a company." "What kind?" "The kind that makes money," she said. Something shifted at the corner of his mouth. Not quite a smile. The suggestion of one. "That's a very careful answer." "I'm a very careful person," she said. "Are you?" he said. It was not quite a question. "Usually," she said. "Tonight I'm still deciding." Now he did smile. Just briefly. Just enough. And it was, she noted against her will with some irritation, exactly as worth seeing as she had suspected. "Can I get you another drink?" he asked. "I have one," she said. "I know," he said. "I'm asking anyway." They talked for 40 minutes without moving from that spot. This was something Fiona would think about later, that neither of them made any move to circulate, to excuse themselves, to do any of the things people did at events like this. They simply stood there and talked, and the room moved around them without either of them noticing. He was not what she had prepared herself for. She had prepared, in the car quietly without admitting she was doing it, for arrogance. For the particular smoothness of a powerful man who knew he was powerful. She had met that kind of man 1,000 times. She knew how to navigate them without touching the sides. He was not that. He was direct without being aggressive. He listened, actually listened without waiting for his turn to speak. When she said something that surprised him, he showed it. When she challenged something he said, he did not deflect or charm his way past it. He pushed back, cleanly and without apology, the way someone does when they respect the person they are disagreeing with. She found that more disarming than anything else. "The hospital restoration," she said at some point. "Is this a regular cause for you?" "Yes," he said. "Why children's hospitals specifically?" A pause. The first real pause of the evening, the kind where a person is deciding not what to say but how much to mean it. "My son was sick when he was 3, he said. "For about 4 months. "It was," he stopped. Started again. "The hospital we were in was not a good place. Not the staff. The building. The environment. A sick child should not have to be afraid of the place that is trying to heal them." Fiona was quiet. "So now I fix buildings," he said, and something in his voice made it sound like a small joke he was making at his own expense. "You do more than fix buildings," she said. He looked at her. "What do you mean?" "I looked up the gala before I came," she said. 3 hospitals in 2 years. A pediatric wing in Seoul. A new oncology ward here. You don't put your name on any of it." He said nothing. "Why not?" she asked. He considered her for a moment. Then he said, "My son told me once that the best kind of good is the kind you do when no one is looking." A beat. He was 5 when he said that. Fiona stared at him. "Your son said that at 5 years old." "He is not a normal child," he said, and this time when he smiled it reached his eyes completely, and it changed his whole face, and Fiona felt something move in her chest that she absolutely did not have time for. "What is his name?" she asked because she wanted to hear him say it. "Jum," he said. And the way he said it, one syllable, quiet and total, like the word contained everything important, made Fiona Jacobs understand in that moment that whoever won this man's love would have to be worthy of that boy first. She thought about small polished shoes on entrance steps. A cream blazer. "I want results." She looked into her champagne glass. "He sounds remarkable," she said carefully. "He is the best person I know," he said, without hesitation, without qualification. "And I know many people." Dinner was served at 8. They were not seated at the same table. Of course they were not. Fiona had no assigned seat and had taken a place near the back with some people from a foundation she vaguely knew. Key was at the front where important guests sat, with his back partially to her. She noticed when he turned slightly in his chair twice during the first course. She looked at her food both times. The speeches were warm and earnest, hospital directors, grateful parents, a surgeon who had to stop twice to collect herself. Fiona listened properly. She felt the room respond around her. The particular emotion that moved through people when they were reminded of what actually mattered. She was reaching for her water when her phone buzzed quietly against the table. An unknown number. A text. "Are you having a good evening, Jay?" Fiona stared at the screen. She typed back. "How did you get this number?" The reply came in 11 seconds. "I am resourceful." Is he being boring? He can be a little boring at first. Tell him something that surprises him. He likes that. Fiona pressed her lips together very hard. She typed. "You are 7 years old." "Yes. And?" She looked up from her phone. Across the room at the front table, Key was listening to the current speaker with his chin rested on his hand. His profile was clean and still. She typed back. "Go to sleep, Jum." His reply was immediate. "I will sleep when my work is done. Good night, Miss Jacobs. Don't waste the evening." She put her phone face down on the table. She picked up her wine. She made a decision. After dinner, during the quiet hour when the music softened and guests drifted into loose conversation, Fiona crossed the room. She did not tell herself she was doing it. She simply did it. Key was standing alone for the first time all evening, near the tall window where she had first seen him. He was looking out at the city lights with his jacket button undone and his champagne glass low in his hand. He looked, in that moment, exactly like what Jum had described to her on the phone the day before. A man who was always alone at these things. She stopped beside him. He did not look surprised to see her. "You crossed the whole room," he said, still looking out the window. "I did," she said. "Why?" She considered several answers. chose the honest one. Because a very small person told me not to waste the evening, she said. He turned to look at her then. Something in his expression shifted. Not confusion exactly, but a kind of slow recognition, like a door opening on a room he had not expected to find. This mutual connection of yours, he said quietly. How old did you say they were? Fiona held his gaze. I didn't say, she said. They looked at each other for a moment. The music played. The city glittered beyond the glass. Then Key did the thing Jum had described. He laughed. Quietly at first, then fully, his whole face changing with it. Warm and unguarded and completely real. The kind of laugh that had nothing polished in it. Fiona watched it happen and felt something settle in her quietly. Not falling. Not yet. She was a careful woman and she had meant that. But the beginning of something. The very first thread of it. Thin and warm and undeniable. Have dinner with me, he said when the laughter had quieted. Not tonight. Properly. This week. I have a full schedule this week, she said. I know, he said. Have dinner with me anyway. She looked at him. I'll think about it, she said. She would say yes. They both knew that. But she was Fiona Jacobs and she did not give anything away easily, not even this. He nodded once like that was exactly the answer he had expected and exactly the one he wanted. The car took her home at 10:45. She sat in the back in her emerald dress with the city moving past the window, and she thought about dark calm eyes and a man who put his son's words into the buildings he quietly fixed for sick children. She thought about a laugh that was worth waiting for. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. One message. Well. She smiled before she could stop herself. Then she typed back. Good night, Jum. 3 dots appeared. Then. Smiling face with smiling eyes. Just that. One emoji. From a 7-year-old Korean mafia boss's son in a cream blazer who had decided, over truffle mushroom soup in a fine restaurant, that Fiona Jacobs was the right woman for his father. She looked at that small glowing emoji for a long moment. Then she put her phone in her clutch, looked out at the city lights and allowed herself, just quietly, just for the length of that car ride home, to feel the first real thing she had felt in a very long time. Some love stories begin with a grand gesture. This one began with a 7-year-old boy, a table for 4, and a phone call nobody asked for. And it was only the beginning. This story is a Black Silk Stories original. If this moved you, made you smile or made you feel something real, you are exactly who we write for. Subscribe, leave a comment and stay close. Fiona, Key and Jum have only just begun. The best is still coming. Black Silk Stories, where Afro-Korean love hits different.